Hello, welcome to a brand new episode of Gadget Nation with me, Adam Carruthers. Exciting times indeed. Merdeka is literally around the corner, so it's a very Malaysia-centric episode that we have in store today. Alongside me to talk about Malaysian stuff in the world of technology, we have Clayton. Hello, are you okay?
Good, how
Fantastic.
are you?
Thank you very much for being here. And we have I-Ming, but your name is spelled with an I.
That's right.
Very confusing man already. Okay, so you guys are into app development and so forth. What do you think of the current setup here within Malaysia?
I think there's a lot of talent in Malaysia. I think a lot of Malaysians are making really good stuff.
Yeah.
Problem is not all of them are doing it in Malaysia.
Expand on that. Where would they be then?
They could be in Singapore,
Okay.
America, England.
Why does it make it more appealing to go there as opposed to here?
I think it's the networking. Building the app is only, I think anyone, well not anyone, if you're good you can build an app. But what really makes things work is the network that you have.
Okay.
The people you rub shoulders with, the people you go for drinks with at night or coffee in the morning, and ideas just spread there. And who you know.
Interesting. So have you both always been focused here within Malaysia? You've never, well, you must have gone for like expos, something overseas, etc.
Definitely. We do travel down to Singapore quite often for any type of for game-specific conference, and it's always interesting to meet a lot of other Malaysians based over there. And there are a lot of big shops over there as well. Guys who have their games, Malaysian-owned company that are based in Singapore that have their games on Chilingo. It's not every day you get to meet a company like that. There's a lot of really talented people over there. And coming back to your question just now, the network over in Singapore is just much more better compared to Malaysia.
Okay.
The good thing about us being here is we are much more cost effective. Hence, jobs get traveled back into Kuala Lumpur from Singapore.
Interesting. All right, well,
I have something to add to that.
okay, by all means.
There's this company I know, it's American. He's been here since 1989, building games in Malaysia.
89?
No.
Or 1999?
98, sorry.
98, okay.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth Games. All right, well, why did you guys get into it in the first place? I mean, was it money making? Were you thinking of the dollar signs, or was it something a real passion for you?
It would be a passion and an opportunity at the same time as well. We saw that it was an emerging industry over in Southeast Asia, especially. We have great talents here. We engineering-wise, in terms of in terms of creative as well, we have what it takes. What we lack of, it's just a stepping stone to be known of. There's not many known games that comes from Malaysia, and we want to be that first one to be there. And it's a green field. There's not a lot of people doing it. So it's much more easy to get noticed as well. On top of it, it's the dollar signs, definitely. You operate in ringgit and you earn in dollars.
Yes,
So why not?
Yes.
Why not? Definitely.
All right.
I think a couple of other things. Mobile games. It used to be a gamer, you need a game console
You
or
need
a
a
computer.
PS3 or PS4, which is coming out or something.
And so people who are not gamers would not buy that. Nowadays, everyone's a gamer. If you have a smartphone, you're a gamer.
Yes.
And so the market is growing, smartphone adoption is growing, and new people coming into games are growing. People who've never played a game before, so you can make all kinds of new games.
And it's growing
the new
exponentially,
audience. Yeah.
which is why you can run custom ROMs on a phone, which for a PS1 game, now you can have it on your phone, even to an extent a PS2 game.
Yeah.
So for you here in Malaysia, how do you get recognition from overseas users and your industry peers? I mean, what are the benchmarks?
One way is to get your brand out there. Go to as many conferences as you can go out of Malaysia. People have to know about your brand name. It's very, very important. Things like, there's a particular conference in Singapore that happens probably, I think, once every year, but it takes place in several regions of the world. It's called Casual Connect. So every time they have it in Singapore, everyone around neighboring countries all would drop by. People from the States, people from Japan, all the way from Europe, they'll definitely come and congregate over in Singapore. And that's one of the greatest places to actually meet them, because that's the only time you get to see them face to face and you can get the close to publishing deal, if you're good and if you're lucky enough. You get guys like Big Fish, you get guys like Chilingo's representative running around in Singapore during the conference, getting there and making known that there is a game like this out there that fits the target market. That's one of the best way to do it.
They're looking for the cash cow, you're looking for exposure, so if the partnership can be done,
Yeah, exactly.
it's all hands on deck. But what about the Malaysian identity within these games? Is it possible to incorporate more of that, or do you feel it's just not justifiable on a grand scheme of things?
I see it in two different ways. You could instill a Malaysian identity into it, but it cannot be overly done, because then other people won't be able to read
You're
it.
closing them off, you're making it too niche.
Yeah, it's too niche. You're closing the door down just to the Malaysian market. And truth to be told, the Malaysian market is not large enough actually to sustain any company to survive. You need to sell outside of Malaysia. One good example is the Battle of Pasir Panjang, Lieutenant Adnan. If someone could make a tower defense game out of it, I think that would be brilliant. Everyone would know about his story. Everyone would know about. There was even a movie about him. But those are the things that we could take and make into a game with actual historical facts and things that actually happen, and package in a game, and people would know, and people would enjoy the game. And if you put enough story behind it, they would actually go and fact check and say, hey, this is actually based on a true story that what actually happened in Malaysia a long time ago. Those are one of the ways where you could instill into it, where people know about Malaysia, or the sense of curiosity just to know more about this.
It's the context and the content of the game itself.
Exactly.
Without being overly pushy, but basing it on the historical facts. But something like Call of Duty, it does instill a sense of patriotism to an extent for the Americans. Do you think possibly that's something to be expanded upon here within Malaysia?
I think people are open to new experiences in games, and in games you don't have the same kind of barrier of entry as you do in film, for example, where American might not look at a Malaysian film unless it was really arty, you know. But a game will appear in their app store and they'll give it a try. And if it's interesting enough, then they'll find out about Malaysia, if it's Malaysia. Maybe a game like Temple Run, in a Malaysian setting, you know, definitely more.
Ah, that's a good idea. Running around Bukit Bintang or something.
Why not?
Okay, straight to Malacca. All right, before we end things here, your hopes and expectations for the local community, for game developers and app developers out there.
One thing I do hope is to see more people coming out, be it whether they're searching funding or be it whatever that's stopping them, come out and just do it. I grew up not saying that I want to build games, but I grew up with the passion that I want to build things. What I want to build, I didn't know then, but now I do. So it's all revolving around that concept of they have to stop doing it. That's one of my hopes, that they will stop to do that. Expectation-wise, I seriously do hope to see more Malaysian games. There are a lot of them out there. Be it small, but it's just that we don't get enough exposure. Most of the time, even if you do get exposure, it's out of Malaysia. No one else in Malaysia knows about the industry, and that's a little bit sad. But on the other side, things are slowly changing, especially compared to last year and this year. We could slowly see the changes, that we're getting more and more recognition. Appearing on TV is one thing. That's something I never thought I'd do.
Hi, Mom. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yourself?
I hope more Malaysians will start working with each other and start seeking each other out. There's so much talent around, and to have to go somewhere else to find local talent is a bit weird. So I think more partnerships among Malaysian companies, maybe content providers and game developers, or different things.
Fantastic. All right, well, you know what? Just because you're here, for yourselves, for all the aspiring app developers out there, from conceptualization, supposing I already have an idea, so let's ignore that part.
Okay.
From getting that concept, that idea in my head, to actually launching an app, how long does it usually take you?
It could take anywhere from a month to a year or longer. It really depends on what it is you want to build.
Okay.
So if, like say for example, if you were to build this cup, this very beautiful cup,
Yes.
after building it, you would tend to make it better, get people to use it, see what are the flaws, make it better, and that process happens a lot of times.
Trial and error.
Trial and error, iterative, making sure that things work fine, making the handles are all good enough, and then you ship it out. So that process, it can be very subjective, and it can be a process where it's a rabbit hole. You can go in and in and in, you don't know when to stop. It's really difficult to say, but anything from 4 months to 8 months is a good estimated time for small casual games.
Okay, fantastic. Clayton and I-Ming, pleasure to have you both here on the show. Happy Merdeka, of course, and we hope to see more stuff within the App Store very soon. Thank you. Carrying on with the concept of Merdeka and of course the Malaysian spirit in terms of the world of technology, I now have Sherman and Eugene sitting next to me. So Sherman, thank you very much for being here. Absolute pleasure. And yourself, Eugene.
Pleasure.
So you guys are 3D game developers. We're going to talk about what the future holds for you shortly, but I just need to know this. Once you've completed a game, do you just sit there and say, okay, we're done, we're finished, I'm never touching this again? Or do you actually play through it, do you admire your handiwork, do you watch how others play it?
I think it's, what we do is we also take into account the feedback, so we have to improve on the game all the time. So for example, if it's our own game, Alpha Kimori, what we do is we have to see what the players want based on the feedback on the game itself.
what they say.
Yeah, what they say.
So basically the whole process of developing the game and basically building it from scratch, from storyboard right to developing it, and there's a lot of testing phases. So the initial stages will be quite fun. But once you test it again and again, you keep looking for bugs, it starts to get quite of a hassle and you start to get a bit annoying.
Tedious.
Yeah, tedious.
Over and over again, but I'm
Yeah.
sure you know all the cheat codes. I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to give you the cheat codes now.
All right.
But once we already ship the game out, yeah, it's a sense of relief. But we definitely, like Sherman said, we're waiting for feedback, improvements, so that we can make a next version. And hopefully if it's good, yeah.
All right, but in terms of the 3D game development here within Malaysia, how do we stand? How have we progressed over the past couple of years?
I would say we are still emerging. So we have a couple of 3D games. In fact, for us, for Sherman 3D, right, we started out with a 3D game demo, which was demonstrated at E3 2003.
Okay.
So that was quite a huge event.
Of
for
course, E3 is E3.
Yeah. When we started that out, we used the Sherman 3D engine, and that's why the company is named after Sherman 3D. Right? Yeah. At that time, there was this McKinsey & Co. Venture 2002 competition. And basically, I entered the competition, won it, and started the company based on that.
I see. Is that where you got your initial funding from?
Yeah,
Is that the
exactly.
prize?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all an offshoot from that. How do we compare to the likes of the United States of America and Japan?
I would say that we still have some way to go. Of course, we are maturing as an industry. For example, like in Alpha Kimori, we actually started as 3D, but we went back to 2D to focus on the content, because I think that content is very important. So if we just focus on 3D alone, which is a technology, we spend a lot of time on the engine. But when we focus on the engine, we sort of lose track of the story and the character development. You know, that's what players actually want. They don't want like just cool 3D, but without the story content.
I think that you can learn from something. I think it was Okami or something.
Or, little Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Not many fan bases did like it. They would say it's just the same thing, NC graphics and all that, but it's more character development.
Taking away the elements of that.
What about the future here within Malaysia? Because from 2003 to now, we didn't have an iPhone. Android didn't exist at that point in time. It's a whole new market now. Do you see yourselves perhaps in the future looking ahead at the mobile aspect of gaming as well, from PC?
Exactly. In fact, we made it on the PC. So basically, Alpha Kimori was one of the top RPGs on Big Fish Games. So what we want to do now is actually expand that market into mobile. We're going to actually create the 3D version of Alpha Kimori perhaps on the mobile now. So if at that time, long ago, if we just focus on the 3D engine, we would have a good 3D engine on the PC, but not the content itself. Which is why we focus on content first. And now, now that we know that the mobile platform, it's better for our game, we can focus on the technology again and bring our content over, basically port it over, which is what we are doing.
Transcending across to another platform. But what about support here? I mean, obviously there's the community, but what about the government? Have they been helping you in any aspect for funding or exposure?
The government has been really helpful. So MDAC and Cradle, basically, they even help us with funding. But the thing is, I would say that in terms of networking, MDAC and Cradle has to, basically push Malaysian games overseas. So I think that is something that we are still doing, which we can improve on.
Okay, well that's one challenge. What are the other challenges that you might face at this point in time, and how do you overcome it?
I think one of the challenges we are facing is that we can't get enough talent. A lot of the talent have migrated overseas. If we can get the talent over here, we can basically build better games. I would say that right now it's happening. We are talking to MDAC about hosting a lot of events, and getting people the exposure to game development. So the thing is, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? You know, there are a lot of people who want to get in the game industry, but they don't know that, and it's not just about playing games, right? Making games is very different.
Yes.
So the thing is, most companies, game development companies, have to collaborate with each other, right? We feel that, we are actually competing against a global market, right? So if we work together, we can help to grow this talent. You know, this talent can move around Malaysia among all the game development companies, but each game development company that you go to helps them mature.
United we stand, divided we fall concept.
Exactly.
Interesting. All right, what about local acceptance here towards the games that you've developed or any other companies here?
Well, local games so far we have mixed feelings of our local games actually. But if we notice that most of our local people will say, why are we not developing AAA games at the moment? But we're actually not there yet. So actually, our game exposure, like Sherman actually said, we're aiming for a global market because most of our local game players here are a minority compared to what we see outside. And we come up with a game concept like Alpha Kimori. It's a bit more like anime concept, but we see Americans playing it. A lot of people are from the state of California, and some people are stay from Ohio. We're like, wow, how did these games get there?
Yeah.
We have no control of that. So that's why we're aiming for basically a global audience. But locally, yeah, we basically get support from our own local fan base. And that's a good thing. At least it's a home base where people will start to go and gain interest to perhaps also go into game development.
What about the global markets looking over to Southeast Asia? Like I noticed that IGN.com have opened up their office here. Obviously that's got a huge following. They have a huge influence on how games are received by the general public. Is that a sign of things to come?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of international game development companies are also looking at Malaysia.
It's Singapore, because they've opened up offices there.
So one of our challenges is Singapore. But the thing is, even for Sherman 3D, we are working with a Japanese partner right now. So the Japanese partner will basically invest in us, help us to get projects from Japan. And we already have Alpha Kimori translated into Japanese, so Japanese partner will help to promote that. So the thing is, it's not just a local industry now, it's become global. We have to collaborate globally to market our products.
Okay, well in closing, we've talked about quite a few things here. We've talked about all the local talent here pooling together as one system representing Malaysia. We've also talked about funding and we've talked about exposure overseas. Biggest question is, can Malaysia really become a big hub, not only for this region, but globally in terms of games?
Yeah, definitely. I think that we can really be a hub. In fact, Sherman 3D has worked on over 20 games, delivered internationally.
Yeah.
So we have worked on games like Scribblenauts, which is very popular.
It's multiple platforms.
Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Moshi Monsters,
Moshi Monster, which is they're making a movie right now.
Okay.
So Moshi Monster was actually in 3D as well. So they had a bit of 3D elements. So the thing was that we were known for making those sort of games, like Moshi Monster, but those games were outsourced to it. And that's how we grew. So basically, we take outsourced projects and we grew from there. But after that, we want to focus on our own IP, which is Alpha Kimori. So, yeah, exactly. So we moved from just doing outsourced work to our own content. That's where I think Malaysia has the chance to grow from there.
Okay, well, I think one thing I've definitely learned is content is key. It's not necessarily how it looks or what the current trend is. A good story will always be able to sell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Happy Merdeka. And we hope to see more of your products out in the market very soon. All right, so sitting with me, I have the CEO of Lemon Sky, Mr. Wong. I'm sorry, I have to ask, are you related to the singer?
No.
No?
No.
Do you wish you were? You're good at arts, okay, I'm just pulling your leg. Now, we're here to talk about growth of the creative industry here in Malaysia.
All right.
How has it been for you? Is it healthy?
It's been very interesting, challenging. I'm not too sure about healthy. There's always a lot of obstacles to go through. But I would say it's very, very interesting.
It's very interesting, but why is it interesting? What makes it appealing to you? What are the obstacles you face?
Interesting as in gaming. Gaming itself is always interesting. I grew up playing games. I think same to you as
Yes.
well. So especially now that we play a lot of mobile games as well.
Yeah.
and about console games. So coming out doing subject for gaming is always interesting. About obstacles, interesting stuff is difficult to be creative, I would say. If you want to be creating new stuff, you want to challenge the new platform like the new console, is always challenging in terms of ideas and developments, and especially in Malaysia as well. We also have challenging about talents as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
talent. All right, interesting point. I just want to get your take on this.
Okay.
What is the harder obstacle to try to blend together? Is it the content of a game, or is it the technical side of a game? Which one do you find you try to struggle more with? You tend to struggle more with?
I would say probably content, because technical you can learn.
Of course,
and
yeah.
is an information age right now. Is actually is not a secret for to learn something, but to come up with creative, fresh ideas that actually can sell
New IPs.
new IPs is not that easy. It's easy as in creating it, but it's difficult as in you want to make it into
To implement it.
to implement it, to be a famous IP.
Okay.
That's not so easy.
Everybody wants to be the game changer. They want to be the next Angry Birds or something.
Yes.
Temple Run, I don't know, one of those games.
Yeah.
But what about the actual back-end stuff? We're talking about funding and government initiatives. How has that helped you so far?
Oh, it helped a lot. I would say our government have a lot of initiative the past 10 years, and they still have a lot of initiative in this area, especially from the MDEC Creative Multimedia side. We have a lot of support, and they do have funding for local Malaysian company. It did helps a lot of company have chance, have opportunity to actually develop their own IPs, and I think that's just great.
Okay, well, that's focusing very much on what's happening here.
Yeah.
What about pushing your products or any other game developer or script writer, anybody involved in this industry internationally? How do you do that?
Well, there's another obstacle we need to go through, is that we have to go out and reach them. We have to and work with them. Like for instance, my company Lemon Sky, we work with a lot of Western and Japanese developers to learn, to know them, and to go into their markets.
And forge a partnership.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Merdeka,
Yeah.
what about Malaysian history? How can you see yourself implementing elements of being Malaysian into your products?
Well, I will say that gaming is always interesting, but history is not that interesting. But if we can join both together, and probably we can have a history in game,
Yes.
that it will help our younger generation to learn about our history, and it's an interesting platform for education as well. Yeah, so I think that will really help.
Okay. What about being a center, a hub for game talent development, as we've seen in Korea, South Korea, North Korea, and China, etc.? How can that happen here? How could it be achieved within our shores?
I would say it from top to bottom, from government to educations to our society. We need a lot of awareness, so we will create a lot of interest that people will study. Then we have graduates, we have professionals. Eventually, we'll have a lot of game creator here, and then we can create a bigger industry. It will take a while, but I see very positive growth in the country.
Do you take examples and try to implement them here from other countries, say Singapore as well, which has become a hub on its own for
Yes.
various projects in the creative field?
Yeah.
So what about the future here in Malaysia? What do you see?
I see our Malaysians are quite creative. I still believe that we can create something from Asia, which is low Asia, but it appeal internationally. Even Westerner or Japanese will buy our products. I believe that.
All right.
Yeah.
Any advice out there for people who wanted to get into this industry, people who have always been interested but perhaps a bit shy, not sure where to go to?
Yep. First, I would advise that pick up a good school now is the good timing because we started to have game education here in Malaysia, and you can graduate as a game designer or game artist or game programmers, and then you can go into the industry. We have a growing industry here.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Merdeka, you're Malaysian. You grew up playing video games. Are you living your dream now?
Yes.
Fantastic. Proud of you. Very proud of you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for taking
Thank
the
you
time
very
to be here today. It's been an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Sadly, the episode has come to an end. I want to thank all the guests that came on today for taking the time to sit with me here. And big thank you to San Francisco Coffee for actually hosting us. And on behalf of everyone at Ashrawani, on Gadget Nation's team, and myself, I want to wish all Malaysians out there a very happy Merdeka. Hope it's a great one for you. We'll be back next week. Till then.